machine. I wasn't always just a single shade, a palette full of gray in reverie. And I can burn it brighter than the sun. I have a golden gun inside of me. Don't box me in, don't, or I'll leave. I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else. And if I fall behind, ignoring all the signs, and if I lose the fight, I still rage against the I'd rather be a dreamer, I'd rather be free, I'd rather be a leader, I'd rather be a queen, I'd rather be a singer in a trashy cover band. I'd rather be a closer, I'd rather be clean, I'd rather be a poser in a magazine, I'd rather be pretty much anything else than your machine.
Welcome to the Thursday stream, everybody. Welcome. Thank you all for hanging out. Folks, today we're going to try to speed run through this because we're going to do some final preparations before things get spicy. Hello, howdy. Michael Hassler, welcome. Florida looks like Atlantis. It does. It does. I've been watching literally all day. Yeah, it's bad over there. I saw I forget what bridge it's called, but I saw people like still driving on that bridge trying to get out. While the ocean is literally like just climbing up that bridge. The ocean is slamming into the bridge. I'm watching the coverage out of Tampa Bay. I'm watching a bar in Florida turn into a boat. Jesus. I saw a man swimming in the ocean around 10 this morning. Well, he might... there might have been enough time. But highly inadvisable at that point. If you are in any of the areas right now, it is no time. It is no time to be trying to evacuate or anything like that. Either head for shelter or hunker down. I can imagine it's ruining some vacations. Yeah. Kamikaze, welcome. All right, folks, the usual disclaimers. Don't forget, if you're on the YouTube, keep liking the stream. See, a couple of you have already liked the stream. If you haven't done so already, follow us here on Twitch. It really does help us out. Subscribe on the YouTube channel, as 258 have done so already. Join the Discord, folks, this Saturday. There's going to be a movie night. I'm pretty sure there's going to be like unless there's just like unless there's some extenuating circumstances where it's just physically not possible, there will still be a movie night. If something changes, I'll post it. The newsman I'm watching has water up to his nether regions. That's wild. That is wild. Join the Discord, folks. Join. Do it. This is the interactive map that we have here. All of Florida is just getting it. Why do they always stand out in the storm? I never understood that. What's wild is they're living through through multiple hurricanes. I'd be out. Yeah, I've had my fair share, and moving up here thinking I was in the clear, and yet I find myself facing down this massive storm. Yeah, because we need to know what it looks like being rained on. Say for this like one sliver down here in South Florida, the entire state seems to be almost covered. Save this sliver here and this here. Yeah, true paradise indeed. Welcome to paradise. All right, let's get started, folks, because we gotta go. Must be the rich part. Well, the rich part is like, oh yeah, that is true. The rich part is closer to the sea. Although there are rich parts here too. Now that song is gonna be in my head. Ha. All right, folks, we got to speed run through all of this because I still got some stuff to do. Let's just do it.
The two most insufferable obstructionist senators you know, Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema obviously, are coping and seething really hard after Kamala Harris detailed her plan to codify abortion rights, saying, quote, "I think we should eliminate the filibuster for Roe and get us to the point where 51 votes would be what we need to actually put back in law the protections for reproductive freedom and for the ability of every person and every woman to make decisions about their own body."
Just to be clear, Harris is completely correct on this. Like, do you think that Republicans wouldn't think about doing this if they could? Like, why do we care what Sinema and Joe Manchin think? Okay.
And not have their government tell them what to do. And that right there is a perfectly reasonable position that I expected her to take, given that she has previously vocalized support for exceptions to the filibuster. Now, the reason why you have to do this, obviously, is that you can't pass anything unless you subvert Republican obstruction by doing away with the filibuster or carving out exceptions to it. Even if you brought
Just talk, it won't happen. I hope it's more than talk. I mean, honestly, it's supposed to. It's really up to the Senate to do that, right? She's just urging the Senate to do that. But I don't think that she herself can do it. Yeah, I think that she should pressure. I think that she should pressure the Senate to adopt that rule.
back the talking filibuster, that would be better. But since there's been no reform, largely thanks to Manchin and Sinema, well, Biden wasn't able to accomplish a lot of what he wanted to accomplish. Now, you can say that Biden did not fight them hard enough, and I would agree with that. But at the end of the day, they were the two obstructionists that basically blocked a lot of transformative.
No, she did. She holds a lot of sway. Yeah, and like as president, in the event that she wins the election, I think that she, if she wants to exercise that, I think that she could put a lot of pressure on the Senate to do that, to adopt those rules, if she wanted to.
Changes that could have happened, but didn't because of them. Now, of course, both Manchin and Sinema, who refused to make exceptions to the filibuster, even for voting rights, mind you, are now unsurprisingly mad at Harris for saying the most reasonable thing ever, and they've actually come out of hiding to denounce Harris for doing what the American people want her to do if she's elected. Kyrsten Sinema, for example, tweeted, "To state the surprisingly obvious, eliminating the filibuster."
Man, what freaking condescending freaking language here. To state the supremely obvious. Like, I could actually hear her saying it in that condescending voice. Amazing.
Filibuster to codify Roe v. Wade also enables a future Congress to ban all abortion nationwide. What an absolutely terrible, short-sighted idea. Hey, dumbass.
But that's how legislation works. That's literally every law. That's literally, yeah, from the Kurt Singh thumbs downer. That's literally every law. Like, we shouldn't pass anything because then they could strike it down. Yeah, that's literally any freaking law that Congress passes. That's just legislating. You know, your job. Amazing. Yeah, she's such a smug little troll. Like,
I've got some news for you. They're going to try to do that anyway. Let me remind you.
Right, like, so how would you react to then the Republican Party saying, you know what, that's a fantastic idea. We're going to try to pass a national abortion ban. You're just going to say, well, you know, they have the numbers. We can't do anything about it. We'll just let them pass that. No. The whole point of putting things on the books, is because it's difficult. Once it is actually on the books, it's difficult to repeal. It's more difficult.
that when Donald Trump was president, he called for the filibuster to be killed, writing on Twitter at the time, "The very outdated filibuster must go. Budget reconciliation is killing ours in Senate. Mitch M. Go to 51 votes now and win. It's time." He also tweeted, "Republicans in the Senate will never win if they don't go to a 51 vote majority now."
Right. So why is it fair that these people are pushing for this because they know that this is the way to enact their agenda, and yet you just cross your arms and say, "Well, I don't think that's a good idea." It's her basically like her prescription to this is just to fold. Like that's what's happening here. Her prescription of this is just to fold and like, you know what? If fascists pass fascism, then so be it.
Now, they look like fools and are just wasting time. But don't you worry, because according to Kyrsten Sinema, a genius obviously, Trump and the Republicans won't actually kill the filibuster when they have power, so long as Democrats do the honorable thing and uphold that esteemed tradition of keeping the filibuster.
Yeah, which knowingly Republicans are very, 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 very trustworthy.
This is delusional. They are going to kill the filibuster and ban abortion nationwide anyway at the first chance that they get.
Right. If the Senate Republicans have the opportunity with the Congress Republicans, they'll absolutely do it. They'll 1000% do it. If they find that they have the numbers both in the Senate and in the House, and they have the presidency to sign off on it, they'll do it. Mitch McConnell literally carved out an exception so he can do his Supreme Court shenanigans. So it's not unheard of. There's a precedent of them doing this.
So you have no reason to unilaterally disarm in hopes that Republicans will do the same for purposes of looking fair, I guess? Does she not remember how Mitch McConnell refused to even hold a hearing for Obama's Supreme Court nominee back in 2016 after Scalia died?
Right, and then he carve out exceptions specifically for, I don't think it was Supreme Court, I think it was like federal judges, something like that.
Saying that, we don't confirm justices in election years, even though we've done that before, because we need to let the American people decide. So he created this entirely new standard, and then guess what happened? 4 years later, when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, he then rushed through the confirmation of Amy Coney Barrett, Trump's nominee, doing away with this new standard that he created 4 years earlier. This is how Republicans operate. They have no principles. Their only principle is fuck you. And this mentality from idiots like Kyrsten Sinema is embarrassingly naive, and this antiquated way of thinking is exactly how she cooked her own fucking career. It's why she's being forced into an early retirement from the Senate, although I'm sure that she's going to do even better as a Wall Street lobbyist. But the point is that the Democratic Party's base has adapted to this new hyper-partisan reality of American politics, and any politician who doesn't recalibrate and adapt with them will be left behind, with her and Manchin being the Democratic Party's base has a only principle is fuck you, Eve, and this
I swear to God, she looks like a character from freaking The Hunger Games. She literally looks like a character from The Hunger Games. Also, side note, yeah, Mitch McConnell literally did this. Yeah, look at him. Look at him. By a simple majority vote, Majority Leader Mitch McConnell set a new precedent in the Senate that will ease the confirmation for President Trump's Supreme Court nominee Neil Gorsuch on Friday after 30 more hours of debate. He's a happy little turtle. Who gave him a mealworm? Donald Trump did. The mealworm being Gorsuch.
Antiquated way of thinking is exactly how she cooked her own fucking career. It's why she's being forced into an early retirement from the Senate, although I'm sure that she's going to do even better as a Wall Street lobbyist. But the point is that the Democratic Party's base has adapted to this new hyper-partisan reality of American politics, and any politician who doesn't recalibrate and adapt with them will be left behind, with her and Manchin being prime examples of that. But on the subject of Manchin, he was even more hysterical than Sinema, and I say this because CNN's Manu Raju reported reports, Joe Manchin, a staunch defender of the filibuster, tells us he won't endorse Kamala Harris now over her vow to gut the filibuster to codify Roe.
Oh no, guys, it's terrible. Kamala Harris lost the endorsement of Joe Manchin. Oh no.
No. Shame on her, Manchin, who is retiring at year's end, said in the Capitol. She knows the filibuster is the holy grail of democracy. Shut the fuck up. It's the only thing that keeps us talking and working together.
No,
if she gets rid of that, then this would be the house.
That's like actually like the opposite. Like this kind of stuff is a detriment to democracy because nothing gets done. Yeah, game over. Game over, everybody. She lost the Manchin endorsement. Yeah, stuff like the filibuster set at an absurd set with these absurd rules prevents democracy from happening. You need your government to work and to legislate and to take care of problems that are that they're tasked to handle. And they can't do that if they're constantly in gridlock. So no, it's not a holy grail of democracy.
House on steroids. Now that Harris has vowed to gut the filibuster on this issue, Manchin said he wouldn't back her for president. Quote, that ain't going to happen, he said. I think that basically can destroy our country, and my country is more important to me than any one person or any one person's ideology. I think it's the most horrible thing. Well, boo fucking who. But I'm sure that, you know...
That's absurd. That's absurd. Like, that's actually indistinguishable from like, a MAGA tweet. That wanting to push for filibuster reform so that a group of people can finally have bodily autonomy. Like, think about that, right? Like, he's bemoaning the idea of a reform in the Senate body so that with the aim of making sure that people have that making sure that people have bodily autonomy. That's what he's complaining about. Faux Machina breaking. Alex Jones sells InfoWars for 2 My Pillows and a half a donut. He claimed residents has a nearby park bench. We actually went over that yesterday. Dude is cooked. Dude is done.
Person or any one person's ideology. I think it's the most horrible thing. Well, boo fucking who. But I'm sure that, you know, she's totally toast after losing the coveted Joe Manchin endorsement because, you know, I'm sure that that is something that is really important in 2024 American politics. Joe Manchin's endorsement. He really has an inflated ego, doesn't he? Dunning-Kruger in action. You know, it's amazing to me that he's calling the filibuster the holy grail of democracy when it is an antiquated rule used by racist senators to uphold slavery and segregation. But putting aside the racist history of the filibuster, the Senate is an inherently undemocratic institution.
Yeah,
it gives elected officials elected by a minority of Americans out.
Right, like as it is, sir, you already belong to a undemocratic institution.
Outsized power over the entire country, and the filibuster gives them even more power than they already have. It is quintessential tyranny of the minority. So no, the filibuster is not the fucking holy grail of democracy, you moron. It is antithetical to democracy. But let's cut the bullshit. Manchin doesn't support the filibuster because he thinks that it's the holy grail of democracy or because he thinks it's going to destroy the country if it goes away. He supports the filibuster because it allows him and other corrupt politicians to more effectively serve their donors. And I say this because in June of 2021, The Intercept actually obtained leaked audio of Joe Manchin scheming with his billionaire buddies about ways to save the filibuster as opposition to it grew when Biden was pushing for Build Back Better, which included a lot of progressive policies that would have helped Americans, but they would have also negatively affected the bottom line of Manchin's billionaire buddies on that call, like Louis Bacon, chief.
Right, so that can't happen, obviously. Yeah, antebellum rules.
executive of More Capital Management, Kenneth D. Tuchman, founder of global outsourcing company Teletech, Howard Marks, the head of Oak Tree Capital, one of the largest private equity firms in the country, and a participant from Tudor Investment Corporation, the hedge fund founded by billionaire Paul Tudor Jones. But he's not going to admit that the filibuster is needed to better serve capital, so he's instead choosing to grandstand about democracy as if anyone believes the bullshit that he's selling.
Right, like, and out of all the things, like, this is how you know it's such BS, because, like, out of all the things he chose to grandstand on, he chose to grandstand on, like, the right to bodily autonomy, right?
Especially after he specifically literally chose to prioritize the filibuster, a Senate rule, over democracy itself by not making an exception to voting rights legislation after Trump tried to steal the last election. So spare me the bullshit, Manchin. None of us are buying it. But it's not surprising to see Manchinima come out of the woodwork to cry about Harris committing to do something that should have been done a long time ago, because these are the main obstructionists for Biden's agenda back in 2020 and 2021 and 2022. But it's got to sting a little bit more for them because they're on their way out. So, you know, there's nothing that they can do to save the filibuster once they're gone. I mean, they can try to lobby Congress, I guess, their former colleagues, after they're inevitably hired by some Wall Street firm. But that's not the same as being a senator. They're not going to be as effective at saving the filibuster as lobbyists as they were as senators. So I hope it does happen, and I hope to see them cry, and I look forward to drinking their delicious salty tears.
Were you acting like a...
That's funny. All right, we'll see how much we can do of this. Let's speed run some of these headlines because this this is important. This was brought to us by, this was on the Discord. This was brought to us by Firefly. Policing for Profit scheme revealed by the DOJ investigation into Lexington Police. Surprise, surprise. An investigation by the U.S. Department of Justice found that Lexington Police used excessive force, unlawfully jailed people, and discriminated against black people. Surprise, surprise. After an extensive review, we found that police officers in Lexington routinely made illegal arrests, used brutal and unnecessary force, and punished people for their poverty, said Assistant Attorney General Kristen Clark. For too long, the Lexington Police Department has been playing by its own rules and operating with impunity. It's time for this to end. Clark with the Justice Department Civil Rights Division and Attorney Todd G. for the Southern District of Mississippi announced the results of the investigation during a call with reporters on Thursday. They listed several examples of people who had been jailed for extended periods for back fines and some for using profanity in public. That's absurd. That is absurd. The fact that fines and fees fund the department drives its law enforcement, resulting in a crude policing for profit scheme. The Lexington Police Department operates under an unconstitutional conflict of financial interest. Yeah. You can be jailed for that? Not legally. But you know, cops can cook up some BS like, oh, you were being a public disturbance, so here's a fine. Clark said that residents of the majority black rural town of 1,200 are left feeling harassed, helpless, and hopeless. I'll be in jail for a long time. As an example, Clark spoke of a man who police chased down and shot with a stun gun until he foamed at the mouth. Clark said in Jesus Christ. Clark said in previous months the man had been arrested for stealing sugar packets from a gas station, which he'd spent 13 days in jail for sugar packets. The same man had previously spent 4 days in jail for taking a second cup of coffee after he paid the... Man, the scale of crimes being committed here is unprecedented. God forbid somebody took a second cup of coffee, okay? And some sugar packets. Each time the Lexington police kept him in jail because the man could not afford to pay the fines or the $50 processing Lexington fee charge for every arrest. Especially a person in poverty, these fines are no small thing. Even though he has no money, the man owes Lexington Police Department $7,500. That is absurd. Yeah, it must have taken about 100K sugar packets. Clark said at no point did the police or city assess the man's ability to pay the fines. Another black man was arrested for stealing less than $20 of gas. The horror! His fine was $300, but Clark said he spent 2 weeks in jail waiting for the next court hearing. That's wild. In America, being poor is not a crime, but in Lexington, their practice punished people for poverty. No, I think that's pretty much across the board. Lexington police were also found to implement investigative holds without being charged with any crime, which is unconstitutional. They also arrested and fined people for using profanity in public. Clark said in one case, police kicked the back door of a man's home and arrested him because he swore in public. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled 50 years ago that cursing in public is protected by the First Amendment as the right to free speech. The investigation began on November 8th of 2023 and included an extensive review of LPD's records, arrest reports, and body-worn camera footage. I'm surprised there's even any body cam footage. City and police leaders and officers were interviewed, and investigators rode along with officers. They also observed Lexington Municipal Court proceedings and met with community members. That's wild. That's just absurd. I'm glad that they investigated this department. I'm pretty sure that this is more common than this one department, but good for the DOJ. Good on the DOJ for investigating them. Let's do some meme news. This is pretty funny. I think this is funny. Rudy Giuliani was disbarred in Washington, D.C. after losing the New York law license. Former New York City Mayor Rudy Giuliani has been disbarred from practicing law in Washington, D.C., according to an order filed on Thursday by the Court of Appeals of D.C. Giuliani, a previous lawyer for Donald Trump, was suspended from the bar in D.C. in July of 2021, and two boards had previously recommended that his law license be permanently revoked over his efforts to overturn the results of the 2020 election. Both panels had pointed to Giuliani trying to get thousands of votes for President Joe Biden tossed out in the battleground states of Pennsylvania that year. The D.C. Bar's Board on Professional Responsibility said in a report in June that there is clear and convincing evidence that Giuliani violated Pennsylvania rules of professional conduct and therefore should be disbarred. A disciplinary board for the D.C. Bar Association made a similar argument in a lengthy decision last year, writing that Giuliani, quote, claimed massive election fraud but had no evidence of it. The board said his utter disregard for facts denigrates the legal profession. Giuliani's efforts to undermine the integrity of the 2020 election has helped destabilize our democracy. His malicious and meritless claims have done lasting damage and are antagonistic to the oath supported by the oath to support the Constitution of the United States of America that he swore when he was admitted to the bar. In a statement to NBC News, Giuliani spokesperson Ted Goodman said on Thursday today the decision by the appeals court is absolute travesty and a total miscarriage of justice. Yeah, whatever, dude. Cope and seethe. And that members of the legal community should immediately speak out against this partisan, politically motivated decision. Yeah, whatever, dude. Cry harder. The people coming after Mayor Giuliani can't take away the fact that he remains the most effective prosecutor in American history who did more to improve the lives of others than any other American alive today. I don't know about that, but it actually doesn't matter what he did previously. Like, even if that was true, even if he was like the best mayor ever, like 30 years ago, okay, it doesn't mean that he didn't do massive damage now. So this is a bit of a non sequitur or red herring, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't have anything to do with the reason why he was disbarred. It has nothing to do with that. It's a complete deflection. Giuliani also lost his law license in New York in July over his actions to disseminate lies about voter fraud in 2020. in the 2020 election. Separately, he faced charges in Arizona and Georgia over his efforts to overturn the 2020 election results in those states. So bye-bye, Giuliani. No more law license in D.C. as well. Consequences, folks. Consequences. Okay, so I do think we have enough time to speed run through this. Let's do this one.
Looming fiscal crisis in America. There's a
Almost $1,000. Jesus.
Sister drug Wegovy has similar prices. So do all the GLP-1 drugs. And this disparity has massive repercussions.
If half of the adults in our country with obesity took Wegovy and the other new weight loss drugs, it would cost us $411 billion every year. That is $5 billion more than what Americans spent on all prescription drugs at the pharmacy counter in 2022.
That's wild. Yeah, nothing to see here, folks. Move along.
The company behind this revolution is called Novo Nordisk. And this year, Novo became more valuable than the entire economy of its home country. We spoke to politicians, drug pricing experts, and policy advocates to understand who is currently benefiting from this revolution.
Oh,
and
I know.
who's paying the price. We found a story
Oh, I can answer that question. Let me guess. It's these pharmaceutical CEOs that are benefiting everything.
of a miracle drug. Its eye-watering price tag, and the unlikely alliance trying to make it accessible for all Americans.
Our office has never questioned the effectiveness of these drugs. We're simply questioning what we're having to pay for them.
That's Dale Falwell. He's the state treasurer of North Carolina. He oversees North Carolina's public employee health plan, which covers almost 750,000 firefighters, teachers, and public servants.
Our state health plan's under siege because of the high cost of these weight loss drugs.
In 2021, 2,800 North Carolina public employees were prescribed GLP-1 drugs for weight loss. And then the drugs went viral.
Ozempic and Wegovy. Popular weight loss drug Wegovy.
We were looking at potentially spending $170 million on this weight loss drug for about 25,000 users. So I think it's really important for your viewers to think about the context of what $170 million is.
Earlier this year, North Carolina gave 250,000 public retirees a one-time 4% bonus. The cost was roughly the same.
In my tenure as the state treasurer of North Carolina, I've never seen something come on this strong and this quickly in terms of the expense.
North Carolina's crisis, it's a gold mine for Novo Nordisk. They have a patent or a legal monopoly on the drug. And being the only company that can sell a revolutionary drug turned Novo from an afterthought into a global titan. Just look at these numbers. 10 years back, it had $4 billion in profit. Last year, over $12 billion.
Since launch, Novo has sold nearly $38 billion worth of the drugs, which has helped fund the same amount in dividends and stock buybacks for shareholders.
It's estimated that last year, 2.6% of the profits on this drug for Novo Nordisk came from our state health plan. Not from our state health plan specifically.
Falwell tried to negotiate with Novo and the state's pharmacy benefit manager around the price of the drugs.
Ban me.
When you're trying to negotiate with someone who is consistently putting profits over patients, you can see how those negotiations can break down very quickly.
And so the NC State Health Board made a tough decision.
North Carolina is dropping its coverage for a popular diabetes and weight loss medication.
We think that all states are under siege because of what I will call price gouging. This is not something that I think is particular to the state of North Carolina.
So I've been doing this kind of costing work for a decade, and unfortunately, 40,000 profit margins seem extreme, but they're not uncommon for patent medicines.
That's Melissa Barber. She's a health economist at Yale University and an expert on how much it costs to manufacture pharmaceutical drugs. Earlier this year, she published a paper with Doctors Without Borders. Her paper estimated how much it would cost to manufacture various diabetes medicines with a reasonable profit margin.
The estimated cost for semaglutide, which you might know as Ozempic, is 89 cents per month. And that's if you assume a 10% profit margin. So if you assume a 50% margin, it becomes about just under $5.
Just a reminder, the list price for Americans isn't $5 or even $50. It's about $1,000.
So when we think about what a fair price for medicine is, the manufacturing cost isn't the only thing to take into account, but it's certainly a key part of the discussion.
Melissa's study went viral, or about as viral as an academic study on generic manufacturing can go.
In March, researchers at Yale found that
blockbuster diabetes drug Ozempic can be manufactured for under $5 for a month's supply. And that's with the
Cognizant gifting a tier 1 sub. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
company's still making a profit.
I think it's also worth saying that this work is not exactly popular by industry.
Shortly after her study was published, Novo's CEO, Lars Jorgensen, addressed her study.
I'm actually quite disturbed by a number like that, because I don't think that's a true representation of what it costs to produce medicine. I think it brings false hopes to patients that anyone can produce at that price.
But here's the thing. Melissa's research isn't just some wild guess.
Sanofi, one of the largest insulin manufacturers, told Congress that its production cost is $1.42 per vial. Melissa's previous work had estimated it between $1.16 and about $5.
And it gets more interesting.
Mayhem Hippie, welcome.
Just a few months ago, a rival pharmaceutical company cited Melissa's study as a reliable method for estimating drug production costs. When you saw Novartis was citing you, what level of vindication did you feel there?
I think I just felt sad for whoever cited it, because it's just some scientist who doesn't really understand that, he's going to get a call from someone in public relations later, and it's not going to go well for him. The public is just wildly disadvantaged when it comes to drug price negotiation, right? One side knows real costs and the other side doesn't. So this study is just one piece of a much broader body of work where I'm trying to even the scales just a little bit.
What are we watching? Oh, corporations being incredibly greedy at the expense of people's health.
Not enough just to point out something's wrong. Eventually, somebody has to fix it.
In July, Falwell wrote a letter to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. He asked the federal government to enter negotiations with Novo Nordisk to open up patents to generic manufacturers. This would end the company's monopoly, increase drug access, and lower prices through competition. He told Bloomberg it would also help solve the budget crisis.
If they will lower this price and charge us what they're charging people in their home country, as the state treasurer of North Carolina, I think we can budget our way through this.
It also puts Falwell, who is a Republican, seemingly on the same side as Bernie Sanders, America's highest-ranking Democratic socialist.
American people, in my view, no matter what your political view may be, are sick and tired of being ripped off by drug companies and paying the highest prices in the world.
Yep, NPR did a great story on it over the summer. Yes, Cognizant, Ozempic equals a miracle drug.
For prescription drugs, including Ozempic.
Are you sure you're not a socialist here?
Well, I'm absolutely sure I'm not a socialist. As I said to Senator Sanders, we've lost the meaning of these words.
I'll be damned. I'll be damned. First of all, just to be clear, on what, actual terminology we're talking about, because he's right. This has nothing to do with socialism, right? If tomorrow, watch out for them flying pigs. Seriously. Just to be clear, he's actually correct. This has nothing to do with socialism. Even if tomorrow we got, snap our fingers and tomorrow we all had universal healthcare, that's not socialism, dude.
I think I'm doing the conservative thing, and that is in trying to figure out how to get more out of less.
So I wouldn't exactly describe this as a radical or a bold proposal, although I was glad to see it. He's essentially asking that the federal government ask these companies very, very nicely to pretty please license out their intellectual property so we can increase global supply and lower costs. The government can...
Yeah, we need to stop asking, especially with things that are so crucial and impact people's lives. We shouldn't be asking at this point.
Ask, but the manufacturer still has the right to refuse. The government does have more tools in its toolbox.
Our government, the president, federal agencies, under existing law, have the power to authorize affordable generic competition at any time, with expensive patented products.
That's Peter Marmaduke. He's the director of Public Citizens Access to Medicines Group.
There's a simple provision of law that we call Section 1498. When the government wants to use a patent invention to support public purposes, the rights of the patent holder are to a reasonable royalty.
Right now, those public purposes are pretty dire.
Right now, there's a huge risk that the influx of these medicines is going to break the bank of our federal and state health programs, and they'll no longer be able to pay for all the health services that our families need.
So if Novo or its competitor like Eli Lilly refuses to license the patent to generic competitors, it doesn't matter. The government can open up the patent while paying them a royalty.
There's no question that the government can use patented inventions for its own purposes, and it does so all the time for defense technologies, for things like night vision goggles.
But the thing is, even the threat of action could be enough to lower the price, because it's been done before.
Another day of germ warfare and still no sign the worst case of bioterrorism in this country is close to being solved.
One company, Bayer, held a patent on the treatment, and the government was looking to stockpile it.
Bayer both didn't have the supply and was charging way too much. So the government said, we're considering using 1498. And sometimes the history is miswritten. I've seen it miswritten in articles before. They say they invoked 1498. They never even had to use the power. They just said, we've been thinking about it. And that was enough to kind of halve the price.
But there's also other options.
The really low-hanging fruit is just negotiating a better price, something that until very recently, Medicare was legally not allowed to do.
That's the main reason why Ozempic costs thousands of dollars in America.
That's absurd. It's where we recruit sapient conservatives. Most are not at this point. Whew. That is, you're talking like needle in the haystack. It is considered luxury or spacing out on the term, a word for what they call cosmetic surgery that is not necessary. I know what you're talking about. I'm also spacing out on the word, but there is a specific term for it.
But a fraction abroad. Governments in nearly every other rich country negotiate prices with pharmaceutical companies. Why not America? The administration that pressured Bayer into lowering the cost of anthrax medication also made it illegal for Medicare to negotiate drug prices. We made a video about it. You should check it out. But the Biden administration reversed that a bit, thanks to the Democrats' Inflation Reduction Act. Each year, Medicare can negotiate the price of a handful of drugs. But there are some restrictions. The drugs need to be on the market for 7 years, and wouldn't you know it, the FDA approved Ozempic in December 2017, making it eligible for the next round of negotiations.
So again, I think that what I lose sleep about
Thank you, Senator Sanders, by the way.
is that the situation is so dire and political pressure is so high. The issue is that political pressure has to dissipate somehow. The question is it going to dissipate meaningfully? Are you going to be able to go to the pharmacy and afford your drug?
I have always thanked Novo Nordisk for being an employer and taxpayer in our community. And I've never questioned the efficacy of these drugs. I'm simply questioning what those that teach, protect, and serve are having to pay for them. It's not time to be pointing fingers at anyone.
No, I disagree. It's the corporation's never-ending pursuit of profit. And I think that pointing the finger and naming what the problem is, I think is key. Ozempic for diabetes is medically necessary and a covered usage. Now we do poor to afford plumbers.
It's time to actually try to solve the problem.
Yeah, I think in that I will disagree. I think you point the fingers. I think you name the names, and then show the people like, hey, this is why. As Wolf Glenn said, this is why your needed medication costs this much. It's because these people are too greedy. It's that simple. It's really that simple. So I'll disagree there. You should name names. You should point fingers, because there's a reason why this is happening. It's not just by magic that when you go to the pharmacy, you walk out with no money. We got to talk about this clown. GOP Representative Clay Higgins deletes post calling Haitian immigrants thugs and telling them to get there out of our country. Man, what a fantastic party, huh? House Democrats immediately tried to reprimand GOP Representative Clay Higgins of Louisiana from the floor of the chamber yesterday over a since-deleted social media post calling Haitian migrants thugs and slapstick gangsters who needed to get there out of our country. The only people who can afford Ozempic is celebrities. Yep. The chairman of the Congressional Black Caucus, Democratic Representative Steve Horsford of Nevada, called on the House Committee on Ethics to investigate what Higgins posted on Twitter and pushed for the House to censure Higgins over his comments. A significant rebuke of a member of Congress, Higgins told CNN that he did not regret his comments. Like, why do we even have people like that in Congress? Like, you can potentially, he's not backing down. He does not regret his comments. And you know what? Like, do we actually need somebody like that in Congress? Because you could expel them. I would say that type of behavior would warrant a vote on expulsion. Is this the black Nazi guy? No. Nope. That's Mark Robinson. This dude it's this dude. How about we first worry about getting insulin and chemotherapy drugs to be covered by insurance and fee to be reasonable before we worry about weight loss meds? Well, it's not just for weight loss either. It has other purposes. But the whole point is that none of this should like we in a perfect world, we wouldn't be having these conversations, right? If all we can do is get insulin and chemotherapy drugs and cancer treatments, essentially, to be covered, and force insurance companies to make sure that we don't fit the bill because we pay the insurance companies to, insure us. So if that's what we can do, then so be it. But really, the core of the problem is the fact that we're having these conversations. But I'm not going to disagree. I'm not going to disagree that we should try to get what we can. And if we pass, rules and laws to get folks covered, I'm not going to disagree with that. Medical insurance is asinine. I agree. Despite the backlash and ultimate decision to take down the post after he said he prayed on it, classic Christian, he told CNN he stood by his demeaning comments. It's all true. I can put up another controversial post tomorrow if you want me to. I mean, we do have freedom of speech. I'll say what I want. Yeah, so that tells me everything I need to know. My mother-in-law had to keep meticulous records of her expenses while going through chemo. That's wild. Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted. I've seen the memes around. He did everything wrong and he was indicted at what we know about the investigation surrounding the New York City mayor. Eric Adams, nearly a year after FBI agents seized his phone in New York City, Mayor Eric Adams faced an expanding constellation of federal inquiries involving his administration. In recent weeks, the investigations have produced a drumbeat of subpoenas, raids, whiplash-inducing developments for the first-term Democrat. Federal investigators have visited more than a dozen members of his administration, taken devices from the police commissioner, who then resigned, the head of public schools, and trusted confidants of both in and out of City Hall. At least one of the high-ranking mayoral aides received a subpoena to testify before a grand jury. Federal prosecutors have declined to discuss the investigation, but people familiar with the elements of the case have described multiple separate inquiries involving senior Adam aides, relatives of those aides, campaign fundraising, and possible influence peddling at the police and fire departments. Oof. Adams, a former police captain, has not been accused of wrongdoing and adamantly denies any knowledge of the criminal activity. Below, a look at what we know about the investigations. On the morning of September 4, federal agents fanned out across New York City to seize devices from the mayor's closest advisors. They also traveled to Rockland County, roughly an hour north of the city. They visited the home of the NYPD Commissioner, Edward Caban, as well as the residence of his twin brother, James Caban. Devices were taken from both homes. James Caban used to be a cop too, but he was fired by the NYPD in 2001 after he was heard on a recording threatening a cab driver. Most recently, he has run a nightlife consulting business. Okay. After a search came to light, a Brooklyn juice bar owned by a accused mayoral aide, Ray Martin, was trying to extort him by claiming that he would receive better police treatment if he hired James Caban as a consultant. As part of the investigation, police seized phones from several precinct-level NYPD officials. Yeah, Olemi was completely right. Yep. After weeks of the searches, Caban announced his resignation, telling officers he did not want the investigations to create a distraction. That same day, Martin was fired from his job at City Hall. James Caban unequivocally denies any wrongdoing. His lawyer, Sean Hecker, said in a statement an email sent to Martin was not returned. A lawyer for Edward Caban did not respond to phone and email messages. After taking office in 2022, Adams turned to a pair of brothers to help oversee the two of the city's most important institutions, the public schools and the police department. He made Philip Banks, a former NYPD chief, his deputy mayor for public safety, and he made David Banks, who had run a network of boys' schools, to the school counselor. The same day they appeared at the homes of Caban brothers, federal investigators seized devices from Philip and David Banks, as well as the first deputy mayor, Sheena Wright, who is David Banks' domestic partner. Agents also took phone from the Banks' youngest brother, Terrence Banks. Wow, they wrapped up everybody. Formerly a mid-level supervisor in New York subway system, Terrence Banks launched a consulting firm that promised to connect businesses with key government stakeholders. The firm represented the companies seeking to work with city agencies, including education and police departments. According to public records, some of the companies received millions of dollars in city contracts, and in one case got a personal meeting with school chancellor after hiring Terrence Banks. Both David and Terrence Banks have said they do not believe that the targets of investigation. An attorney for Philip Banks, Benjamin Brofman, has told reporters he believes his client has zero criminal liability. So if you go through this, can we just finally declare that police departments are just criminal trade schools? Agreed. This guy has been investigated for quite a while, and it looks like all the chickens have come home to roost. If you want to read the rest, because I got to get going, I'm going to post the link here, and you can also check out the Discord, as I will post it on the U.S. News Discord as well, because I got to get going, folks. It's just under 6:30, and it is time. We've got some final things to go through before we close up shop here at the Difficult Truth Homestead. So we got to take care of a couple things, and that's it. We're done. Stay safe, you. I will. That's the point. That's the idea, I should say. Thank you all for stopping by. I appreciate it. Thank you. We'll keep you guys updated on how things look for Saturday. Join the Discord, folks. Thank you all. Thank you, Heat. Thank you, Michael Hasser, for modding the chat. Thank you for the support. I appreciate it. We'll be back on Monday or whenever. Okay, just pay attention to the Discord, folks. If anything, I will also make a announcement on Twitter as well. Thank you all. I appreciate it. We'll be back as soon as possible. As always, folks, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. And bring a friend, folks. Thank you all. You guys are what makes this channel grow. Thank you. I appreciate it. See ya. I could probably host on Saturday if you can. Okay, we'll keep, I'll keep an eye out and see what happens. Like us on YouTube. I see you guys. All right, folks, we're heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye-bye.